There is a quiet moment we have all experienced, standing in a room full of people, smiling politely, doing everything right, yet feeling unseen, unheard, or taken lightly. And in those moments, a gentle question often rises in the heart. Why do some people naturally command respect, without raising their voice or proving anything, while others work so hard and still feel overlooked? The answer is not louder words, sharper titles, or perfect behavior. It begins much deeper, inside the invisible conversations happening in the brain, both yours and theirs. Psychology teaches us that respect is not something we demand, it is something we subtly signal. And neuroscience shows us that people are constantly reading those signals, long before logic or language steps in. Think of respect like warmth from a candle. It doesn't chase the darkness. It simply exists, and the room adjusts around it. When you understand how the mind perceives confidence, safety, and value, you stop performing for approval and start standing in quiet certainty. People feel it. They respond to it, almost instinctively. Today is not about changing who you are. It's about remembering something powerful you may have forgotten. That your nervous system speaks before your mouth does. That your boundaries teach others how to treat you. And that the calm way you carry yourself can rewire how the world responds to you. As we begin exploring these psychological secrets, I invite you to listen not just with your mind, but with your lived experiences, the moments you stayed silent, the times you gave too much, the days you wondered if you were too much, or not enough. What you're about to discover is not a trick or a mask. It's a return to an inner alignment that naturally invites respect, the kind that doesn't fade when you leave the room, but stays, because it was felt. Self-respect is not a personality trait you are born with. It is a signal your brain sends out every moment, quietly teaching others how to treat you. Long before someone decides whether to listen to you, value your words, or take you seriously, their brain is already responding to subtle cues coming from your posture, tone, pace, and emotional boundaries. Neuroscience shows us that the human brain is constantly scanning for safety, certainty, and self-assurance. When you respect yourself internally, your nervous system settles into a state of calm authority, and other brains instinctively mirror that state. Many people believe respect comes from doing more, over-explaining, overgiving, or overproving their worth. But psychologically, this often sends the opposite message. When you constantly justify your needs or apologize for your presence, the brain of the listener subconsciously registers uncertainty. Mirror neurons, which help humans unconsciously copy emotional states, pick up on this lack of inner grounding. Without a single word being said, the message becomes clear. If you don't fully value yourself, others don't feel compelled to either. Self-respect begins with how you respond to discomfort. Imagine two people faced with the same situation, interruption, dismissal, or unfair treatment. One reacts with nervous laughter or silence, while the other pauses, breathes, and responds calmly. The second person is not aggressive or cold, they are regulated. Their brain is not in fight or flight. This emotional regulation signals strength and stability, and the observing brain interprets it as competence and credibility. Respect follows naturally because humans are wired to trust what feels grounded. Boundaries play a crucial role here. Each time you honor your limits, by saying no without guilt, by not rushing to fix others' discomfort, by allowing silence, you reinforce a neural pattern of self-worth. Your brain learns, I am safe even when I don't please everyone. Others sense this certainty. Consistency matters more than intensity. Small, repeated acts of self-respect train people's expectations over time, shaping how they interact with you without confrontation. Even your inner dialogue matters. When you mentally minimize yourself, your body follows. Shoulders subtly fold inward, voice softens at the wrong moments, eye contact weakens. The brain cannot hide its beliefs, it expresses them through the body. But when you speak to yourself with fairness and dignity, your presence changes. You occupy space without apology, not because you are trying to be powerful, but because your nervous system no longer feels the need to shrink to survive. Respect, then, is not something you chase from others, it is something your brain teaches them through repetition, emotional steadiness, and the quiet confidence of someone who knows they are allowed to exist fully without permission. Emotional regulation is one of the most underestimated forms of power, because it works in silence. When you remain calm in moments where others expect you to react, the brain of the observer immediately takes notice. Neuroscience explains that heightened emotions activate the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for threat detection. When someone loses control, even slightly, it signals instability. But when you stay centered, your nervous system communicates safety and strength at the same time, and that combination naturally commands respect. Think about the people you admire most. They are rarely the loudest in the room. They don't rush to defend themselves or prove their intelligence. Instead, there is a steadiness in how they pause before speaking, how they breathe through tension, how they choose their words. This is not accidental. A regulated nervous system allows the prefrontal cortex to stay online, which governs clarity, decision-making, and emotional intelligence. Others may not understand the science behind it, but they feel its effect immediately. In everyday life, emotional regulation shows up in small, almost invisible ways. It is the ability to listen without interrupting when you feel misunderstood. It is staying neutral when someone tries to provoke you. It is choosing a measured response instead of an impulsive reaction. These moments teach people that you are not easily shaken, and the human brain associates this stability with leadership and authority. Respect grows because unpredictability fades. There is also a deeper layer to this. When you regulate your emotions, you refuse to outsource your sense of worth to someone else's behavior. You stop letting tone, opinion, or approval determine your internal state. Psychologically, this is powerful because people quickly learn that manipulation, guilt, or pressure does not work on you. Not through confrontation, but through consistency. Over time, interactions with you become more intentional, more thoughtful, because others sense they must meet you at your level of calm. This kind of confidence is not arrogance. It does not push, dominate, or intimidate. It invites trust. When your presence feels emotionally safe, people lower their defenses around you. They listen more closely. They weigh your words more carefully. Even disagreement feels different, because your calm signals that conflict does not equal danger. The brain relaxes, and respect follows naturally. Learning emotional regulation is less about suppressing feelings and more about understanding them. When you can name what you feel without being ruled by it, you reclaim choice. Your silence becomes intentional, your voice becomes steady, and your reactions become rare but meaningful. In a world that rewards noise and reactivity, the person who can remain composed stands out without trying, leaving an impression of strength that lingers long after the moment has passed. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep people out. They are quiet lines that tell the world where you begin and where you end. Psychology shows that the human brain feels safer and more respectful toward people who are predictable in how they allow themselves to be treated. When your boundaries are clear and consistent, others do not have to guess your limits. They sense structure, and the brain naturally associates structure with reliability and trust. Many people fear that setting boundaries will make them seem cold or difficult. In reality, the opposite often happens. When you say yes to everything, resentment slowly leaks into your tone, your body language, and your energy. The brain of the other person detects this mismatch, even if they cannot name it. Respect erodes not because you said no too often, but because you said yes when you meant no. Boundaries protect emotional clarity, and clarity is deeply respected. Consistency is the key that makes boundaries work. A boundary expressed once but abandoned later confuses the brain. Intermittent limits teach people that pressure will eventually succeed. But when your responses are steady, calmly repeating a limit without justification or emotional charge, you train expectations. Over time, people adjust their behavior not because they fear you, but because your nervous system no longer negotiates its own worth. Boundaries also communicate self-trust. Each time you honor your limits, your brain reinforces the belief that your needs matter. This internal alignment changes how you show up externally. Your posture straightens, your voice stabilizes, your presence feels anchored. Others sense this coherence. Respect grows because humans instinctively trust people who trust themselves. There is a subtle confidence in not over-explaining. When you feel compelled to defend every decision, the listener's brain receives the message that your choice is fragile. But a simple, grounded response, without apology or excess detail, signals certainty. This certainty does not demand agreement, it simply exists. And the brain, wired to conserve energy, stops pushing against what feels immovable. Healthy boundaries also reshape relationships. They remove unspoken tension and replace it with mutual understanding. When people know what to expect from you, they interact with more intention. They listen more closely. They choose their words more carefully. Respect deepens not through emotional distance, but through emotional honesty. Boundaries are not about control, they are about responsibility. You take responsibility for your time, your energy, and your emotional state instead of expecting others to manage them for you. This quiet ownership changes the dynamic of every interaction. People sense that you are not seeking permission to exist or approval to be whole. You simply are, and in that steadiness, the brain recognizes something rare and valuable, responding with a level of respect that feels natural rather than forced attention is one of the most powerful psychological currencies you possess, and how you offer it shapes how people perceive your value. When you are fully present with someone, their brain feels it immediately. Neuroscience shows that being deeply listened to activates reward centers associated with safety and connection. In a world full of distraction, the person who can stay present without rushing, checking, or drifting away stands out as grounded and trustworthy, and trust is the doorway through which respect enters. Many people listen only to respond, not to understand. Their mind is already preparing a defense, a story, or a solution. But when you slow down and truly hear someone, something subtle shifts. Your body softens, your gaze steadies, and your nervous system signals openness without submission. The other person's brain relaxes because it no longer feels the need to fight for space. Respect grows not because you dominate the conversation, but because you allow it to breathe. Deep listening is not passive. It is an active choice to be emotionally available without absorbing someone else's chaos. You can acknowledge feelings without fixing them, validate experiences without agreeing with everything being said. This balance communicates maturity. Psychologically, people respect those who can hold emotional space without being overwhelmed by it, because it suggests strength rather than fragility. Presence also reveals confidence. When you are comfortable with silence, you send a powerful signal. Silence gives the brain time to process, and it subtly shifts authority. The person who does not rush to fill every gap appears self-assured, as though they trust their words will land when they need to. This calm patience changes how others respond to you, making them more thoughtful and intentional in return. There is also a neurological element of mirroring at play. When you listen with genuine interest, the other person's brain mirrors your state. Their breathing slows, their speech becomes more organized, their emotions regulate themselves. Without trying to lead, you become a regulating presence. People may not consciously realize why they feel calmer and more respected around you, but their nervous system remembers. Attentive presence also teaches people how to treat you. When you do not interrupt yourself, rush your own thoughts, or minimize your reactions, you model respect in real time. Others subconsciously follow that example. They pause before speaking over you. They give your words more weight. They sense that your attention is intentional, not scattered. This kind of listening transforms ordinary interactions into meaningful exchanges. People leave conversations with you feeling seen rather than drained, understood rather than judged. Over time, this creates a reputation that precedes you, not as someone who speaks the most, but as someone whose presence matters. And when presence is paired with emotional steadiness, the respect it generates feels natural, enduring, and deeply human. Respect is often shaped by the smallest behaviors, the ones that seem insignificant but speak directly to the subconscious mind. Psychology shows that humans rely heavily on nonverbal cues to assess confidence, credibility, and value. Before words are processed, the brain is already interpreting posture, eye contact, pacing, and tone. These subtle signals quietly inform others whether to lean in or dismiss, whether to trust or doubt. The way you occupy physical space sends a message. When your movements are unhurried and intentional, your nervous system appears settled. Rushed gestures and restless shifting signal urgency or insecurity, even when your words are calm. A grounded body tells the brain of the observer that there is no threat and no need to rush, and this calm presence naturally elevates how seriously you are taken. Eye contact plays a similar role. Gentle, steady eye contact activates neural pathways associated with honesty and confidence. Avoiding it entirely can signal fear, while forcing it can feel aggressive. But relaxed eye contact, paired with a soft facial expression, communicates both strength and safety. People respond to this balance instinctively, offering respect because their brain feels neither challenged nor dismissed. Tone of voice carries more emotional information than the actual words being spoken. A steady, measured tone signals emotional regulation and self-trust. When your voice rises, rushes, or trails off, it can unconsciously invite interruption or dismissal. But when you allow your voice to settle, even your silence begins to carry weight. The brain interprets this as authority without force. Timing is another powerful cue. Knowing when to speak and when to pause changes how your message is received. When you respond too quickly, it can seem reactive. When you pause, even briefly, it signals thoughtfulness and intention. That pause gives your words gravity. People listen differently when they sense you are not driven by impulse. Consistency across these small behaviors matters more than perfection. One confident moment does not build respect, but a pattern does. Over time, these cues form an identity in the minds of others. They begin to associate you with steadiness, clarity, and presence. This association shapes future interactions before they even begin. What makes these cues powerful is that they are not performative. They emerge naturally when you feel safe within yourself. As your inner dialogue softens and your nervous system stabilizes, your external behavior follows. Respect then becomes less about managing impressions and more about allowing alignment to show. Without effort or announcement, your presence communicates something the brain recognizes immediately. This person knows themselves, trusts themselves, and does not need to convince anyone to be taken seriously.